And I'm excited to present to you today the journey to joy. I know a lot of our topics are about stress relief and stress resilience and validation and overcoming challenges. And there's definitely a little bit of that in this presentation today, but I also want to kind of reinforce what you all already know, which is that there can be a lot of joy found in this journey of caregiving. My goal today is to give you some tips on how to cultivate or maintain joy in your journey, to validate, of course, the challenges that come with caregiving. But I kind of wanted to do this as a kickoff to our winter holiday season, where everyone's kind of focusing on, peace and joy and family. And I really hope that this will be a good catalyst for you to really sink into that joy that comes with this season and being around family and celebrating. So now that it's 10 o'clock, I'll go ahead and get started. Of course, if you have not done so, please put your email in the chat so I can take attendance and send you the post survey so I can get your feedback. It's greatly appreciated. And it's an invaluable resource for me to know that I am giving you all what you need. And of course, if you have any suggestions, I am all ears. So please, if you have any subjects you want me to talk about, or if there's something I have already talked about that you would like me to talk about more in depth, I'm also open to do that. So I'd love your feedback if you have any. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our agenda today is we're going to talk about the caregiving role and its challenges. We're going to talk about what moments might cause you stress. We're going to talk about how to stay positive as a caregiver during those challenging and stressful moments. We're going to talk about the difference between happiness and joy and at their different emotions. And then, of course, we're going to end with some tips to help you add more joy to your life as a caregiver. And of course, if you have any tips that I don't talk about that you think would be useful for the group, I encourage you to share those with everybody at the end so that we can learn from one another. Of course, the information I curate for you is it's decent. It's written by professionals and whatnot, but I think there's something to be said about lived experience. And so I'm definitely here to learn from you all as well. So the idea of finding joy in caregiving might seem to some to be counterintuitive. Caregiving is often viewed as a stressful and challenging role filled with many burdens and responsibilities. But the role also brings immeasurable joy, fulfillment, and personal growth. It's about shifting your mindset, focusing on the positive aspects, and celebrating small victories every day. Caregiving at its core is about providing assistance and emotional support to those in need. Whether you're caring for an aging parent or a spouse with a chronic illness or a child with special needs, caregiving can be very enriching and rewarding. It's all about embracing your role and learning from it and finding joy. The joy in caregiving is not about ignoring the challenges or difficulties, right? We don't want to venture into toxic positivity where we plaster a smile on our face and everything's rainbows and sunshine all the time, because we know that's not the truth. But it is about acknowledging your troubles and your challenges, dealing with them head on, and finding happiness and satisfaction in the small everyday victories. This type of approach towards caregiving can transform your experience into a joyful journey. So some of the roles, or the role and challenges of caregiving, the role is very multifaceted and complex. It involves physical tasks like assisting with mobility, managing medication, ensuring proper nutrition, and it also includes emotional tasks like providing companionship, emotional support, ensuring the mental well-being of a person that you're caring for, right? So caregiving can often feel like an emotional roller coaster. There's moments of frustration, exhaustion, and even despair, but there are also moments of pure joy, accomplishment, and deep connection. These moments make the journey worthwhile and contribute to the joy in caregiving. So as caregivers, it's important to recognize and honor these moments, to celebrate the small victories like a shared laugh or a successful day without a health setback, or just a moment of quiet companionship. These victories may seem insignificant, but they are the moments that bring joy and meaning to our role as caregivers. Caregiving isn't without its challenges, though, right? It can be physically exhausting and emotionally draining. Caregivers often struggle with feelings of isolation, stress, and burnout, and you may also face financial strain and lack of personal time. But despite these challenges, many caregivers find a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment in their role. You learn to adapt, to be resilient, and to find joy in the most unexpected places. Finding joy in, once again, the small victories, in the progress that you see in your loved one, and then the deep connections that you forge. The key to navigating challenges and finding joy in caregiving lies in recognizing and celebrating the small victories. Keep saying that over and over again, right? Because when we start looking for them, we'll see that they're everywhere. It's about acknowledging hard work and dedication that goes into caregiving and finding the satisfaction and joy in the difference that you make in the lives of those that you care for. So what moments might cause you stress? I'm sure this is redundant information. I don't think I need to tell you what stresses you out, but by showing you that there are some common threads in the caregiving journeys, perhaps it'll validate where you are and how you feel. So few caregiver situations don't have at least some stress, right? And some have significant stress. And your stress level will depend on many factors like what is your mood that day, what other challenges you're experiencing in your life, or whether you're having a good day or a bad day. So you'll likely recognize some of these stressors and realize that you are not alone. Okay, so complex caregiving tasks. So you're expected to perform increasingly complex tasks, medical tasks even for your loved ones. And that could happen when they're discharged from a hospital or a rehab, or when an illness exacerbates, or that's just the life that they're living, right? They're always going to have complex medical situations coming up. And often you're not really trained for any of these tasks, right? You can the doctor says, well, here's what needs to be done, and good luck, right? Some of you may be trained medical professionals, but I would venture to say that most caregivers are not. And so it can be incredibly stressful to have to perform complex caregiving tasks without any training, without any professional training. And so you can become very stressed, thinking that maybe you're not doing things correctly, or maybe you're not doing things safely. So of course, accessing caregiver resources can help you learn caregiving techniques and connect with other caregivers. And one thing I will suggest, if you have not done so yet, is to enroll in our free Care Academy, which is an online mobile-friendly platform, which means you can do it at your leisure. It's self-paced, and it starts on the 1st of every month. So if you're interested in that, please contact me and I'll give you the way to register for that, since the 1st is definitely coming up. Next, uncooperative or angry loved ones. So you could be caring for someone with dementia, an aging parent or a spouse, and anger and frustration are normal reactions to losing control and being sick, right? I mean, you get a diagnosis, you're told what you can look forward to, what's coming down the pipeline. And that can be very stressful for somebody, knowing that they're losing control, or that they are going to even need a caregiver at all. And so their mental health state can come out as anger and being uncooperative towards you. So the anger can sometimes manifest as being uncooperative and difficult to deal with. And you're only trying to help, but it can be very stressful when you encounter resistance. Next, a decline. When your loved one's health declines, the emotional and caregiving toll can be stressful, even if you're expecting the decline. Caregiving duties will increase, and thoughts about if and how your loved one can recover can be stressful, especially if you know that they're facing the end of life. That can be very stressful and emotionally draining. Next, financial strain. A lot of caregivers experience financial strain, especially if you feel like you have to leave your employment or cut back your hours, or if you're having to hire additional help. That's an added expense. And it's hard not to think about the short and long-term economic impact every time you care for somebody, right? And then lastly, as a caregiver, you might not have enough help, right? So you might have a job or other family responsibilities, and you're trying to juggle everybody else's needs as well as your own. And hiring help might not be in your budget. Of course, if you're on our respite reimbursement program, we all know that that definitely helps, but it does not cover the complete expense of taking care of a loved one, and it doesn't necessarily always give you all the help that you need. It's just kind of a buffer. And so that can also cause a lot of stress if you don't have adequate help, either through respite or other family members that maybe are not stepping up to the plate. That can be very stressful. So how do we stay positive as a caregiver during these challenging moments? So we've got a few tips here. Accepting your limitations is a big one. So you can't do it all. And if you think you can, the stress will make it a challenge to stay positive, right? Because yeah, you might be able to do it all, but at what cost? So accepting your limitations, doing what you can, and letting the rest go can give you a more positive attitude. Acknowledge that you're doing the best that you can. Now, I often will interject my own experiences into these educations, knowing full well that everyone has their own story and has their own challenges. And I definitely don't want to compare and contrast. But for me, accepting what I can do and what I can't do, I can just say that a testament to that, it definitely does help with the stress level. And it might feel awkward, especially if you're used to doing it all, to say no and to set boundaries. But I promise you, if you stick with that and you prioritize your rest, it will be a lot easier for you to experience joy when you're challenged. Next, having someone to talk to. So that could be a counselor, a friend, or a family member. Having someone to talk to will help you stay positive in those challenging moments. Others can give you a different perspective and offer coping strategies, which is why I encourage all of you to jump in when we have an online caregiver support group, because it does make a difference to be in community with each other, even if it's just online. I feel like maybe online relationships get a bad rap, but sometimes that's our only option. And I personally have had some very rich and supportive relationships through online friendships. And so we don't want to discredit that as something that we can utilize. Next, breathing deeply. I mentioned this, I'm sure, a million times in other trainings, and it seems so simple, but it definitely does work. So taking deep breaths has been shown to calm your nervous system by lowering blood pressure and your heart rate. So settling the body can help you settle the mind, which can lead to stress reduction. You can practice deep breathing any time of the day to get used to the process. Now, a little piece of information I learned recently was that if we are in a chronic anxiety or anxious state, stressed out state, we do a lot of shallow chest breathing. And so when we take a deep breath and we release that, we're actually releasing the buildup of, was it carbon dioxide? I always get dioxide and monoxide mixed up, sorry. But it's, and that actually does alleviate a lot of anxiety and stress. When we're shallow breathing, we don't release it as much as we need to, and the buildup of that can cause us stress. So even just taking a few deep breaths can really help kind of center you, ground you, so that you can be responsive rather than reactive in those really challenging moments. And then finally, focusing on the relationship. So it's normal for the relationship with the person that you're caring for, to change, right? Obviously. But be mindful of the person's value and the significance of your relationship with them. People can change when they're ill or disabled, but their disability does not define them. So if we just stay focused on the task at hand, and we can lose sight of the person. And so focusing on the relationship with that person and really seeing them can be helpful in reducing your stress. So staying positive as a caregiver during challenging moments will take some mental fortitude and an acceptance that you can't stay positive in every moment, right? That's not the goal. We're not trying to be bots here. We're trying to be human beings. Accessing caregiver resources will help you build a foundation of support and knowledge. Staying connected with others is really probably one of the best ways that you can manage your challenging moments, especially if there's people who have walked a similar walk to you. So whatever the challenging moment is in caregiving, it will pass, right? If there are angry or frustrating moments, it will be easier to stay positive if you realize that tomorrow is another day and that this too shall pass. A shift in attitude can change the current dynamic for the better. And I also want to kind of go back to, really kind of thinking, where is your loved one at in this place? Are they grieving? Are they depressed? Are they fearful of what the future may hold for them? And so maybe seeing that they are also experiencing challenges can hopefully cultivate some empathy. Not that you don't already have it. Obviously, we all have have extreme levels of empathy if we're doing what we're doing, but in that moment, if we're frustrated and we're feeling challenged, it can be very easy to let empathy slip out the window, right? So really just kind of, seeing things from their perspective can be a motivation for you to behave in a more empathetic and positive way, right? So now we're going to talk about what's the difference between happiness and joy, because they are different emotions. So many people don't differentiate between them, but they are not the same. One is external and the other is internal, and both are within your reach. So happiness is an external experience. It's a result from your circumstances, your situations, and the things that you have, right? So for some, a job promotion can bring you happiness. Others find happiness in their possessions, but regardless of their source, it's ultimately temporary. As circumstances change, what makes you happy can change, right? But joy is an internal experience. It comes from within. So it does not depend on anything outside of you. It's based on your attitudes and your beliefs. Feelings of inner peace and contentment, regardless of external situations, are the hallmark of joy. It's about connecting with others and accepting the circumstances, appreciating nature, beauty, and the inherent goodness of life. Joy lasts because it comes from deep within. Adversity does not diminish joy. Caring for a loved one is a service to others that can add joy to your life. So when we talk about the journey to joy, what we're really talking about is having joy be a characteristic of who you are and not necessarily a feeling that you're experiencing, if that makes sense. Okay. So here are some tips to help you find more joy or add more joy to your life as a caregiver. So it's difficult to just find joy, right? You're not going to find joy laying on the sidewalk while you're walking home, right? You have to work for it. Joy is what gets you through the tough times, and it can help you when you're feeling anxious, scared, frustrated, and exhausted. You can rely on your grit and your tenacity, but joy plays an important part in getting you through those challenging caregiving moments as well. Finding joy in your daily life is essential to maintaining overall well-being. Being open and willing to adapt to the ever-changing demands of caregiving is key in finding that joy. Building a reserve of joy increases your resiliency as a caregiver. So every moment of joy fills your tank a little bit more. And so that's why looking for those moments is so important, because they are there. You just have to train your brain to see them. So learning to take notice of the inherent joys throughout your day and create joyful moments for yourself. So small things often make the biggest difference. So here are some tips. Okay, I'm gonna go through them one by one here. Surround yourself with friends and family. Sometimes that's easier said than done, and I understand that. And so this might not be a tip for everybody, but if you can build a community, or if you have a community that maybe you've lost touch with, try and connect back again. Often when we hit this caregiving journey, it's all consuming, right? It's overwhelming sometimes, and that's all we can focus on. That's all we can do. And sometimes that's the season you're in, right? You're just in that time where you don't have time for other relationships, and that's okay. But when you kind of crest out of that season and you have more time, try touching base with some of those friends you may have had, or building a community of new friends if maybe the ones you had before fell away. So research shows that the happiest and often the most healthy people have quality relationships in their lives that include a network of family, friends, and community. They are the ones that you trust to have your back when things get rough. But unfortunately, caregivers often lose touch with their network amidst your caregiving responsibilities. So again, reconnect. If you don't have a network, it's never too late to build one. So connecting with friends and family can increase your self-esteem, enhance your mental health, promote healthy behaviors, and help you handle stress better. And I tell my children, as long as you have at least one friend, right? One buddy, one confidant, one person that hears you, sees you, and accepts you. You don't have to have a whole house full of people, to experience this support. It can just be one person. And so don't feel overwhelmed thinking, well, I have to go out and make 30 friends in 30 days. That's not what we're saying. But again, if an opportunity to plug in comes up, if you can take it, take it. Don't talk yourself out of it, because we do need other people. We definitely do need other people. Next, seek the simple things. Are you noticing a theme here? So the world does seem very big and scary right now. And there's so many things out of our control. I mean, and let's just face it, if you're paying any kind of attention, the world does seem very scary, and kind of daunting. There are a lot of things that are happening that are out of our control. And so looking inward for your simple everyday pleasures, things that are attainable and require little effort, that are convenient and inexpensive. These are good ways for us to find joy in just very simple ways, right? Just slow down and be aware of what's around you. So a few ways to enjoy life's simple pleasures: watching the sunset, or if you're feeling really adventurous, waking up early and watching the sun rise. Listening to music. I'm a big advocate for music therapy. It can be so freeing and so healing. Snuggling with your pet, right? Just having that moment of just, feeling something soft and feeling the warmth and the love of something can definitely soothe your stress levels down. Writing, texting, or calling an old friend. Again, if you had somebody that maybe was very supportive of you, that you're close to, maybe you lost connection with, reach out, see where they are. And again, celebrating the small victories, right? That is an integral part of caregiving. Recognizing the progress, no matter how small, and taking the time to celebrate it, right? Acknowledging the efforts and dedication that go into caregiving and finding joy in the outcomes. Small victories can be as simple as a shared laugh, a peaceful night's sleep, right? Some of you guys have wandering loved ones that keep you up all night. So if you have a full night's rest, that's a simple pleasure. That's a simple joy. That's something that you can, celebrate. Or a successful doctor's appointment. Maybe you got a good report, or maybe you got out the door on time and you weren't running late. Those simple things, acknowledging the good things that are happening every day. They can bring a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction to your journey. Celebrating small victories not only brings joy, but it also boosts your morale and motivation. They can help you stay positive and focused, even in the face of challenges and setbacks. And it can remind you that the difference you're making and the impact you have on the lives of those that you care for. So way back when I did a training about gratitude, I believe it was, and I mentioned the negativity bias, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before, and that is just our hardwiring as human beings to always see what could be potentially dangerous in our environment, okay? And that's not just about, a lion in the savannah somewhere. I mean, that could be financial stress, relationship stress, caregiving stress, okay? And so our brain is hardwired to focus on all the negative things that are potentially harmful to us. And so what I hope to inspire you to do here, by seeking out the simple things, by seeking those joys that you see every day, you're really retraining your brain to focus on those things. So at the end of the day, you can't say, well, I was late for my doctor's appointment, and so my whole day was ruined. Okay, I mean, you can definitely say that, and it could be incredibly stressful for you, and that's valid. But you can also follow it up with all the things that went right that day, right? Maybe, mom ate all of her food today and didn't complain. Or, maybe my son, beat a level on a video game that he'd been challenged with for however long, and so he was really excited. So I was excited for him. It doesn't have to be a big blow up moment for it to be joyful. Okay. Great. Create a daily gratitude practice. So take time each day to write down or say aloud the things that you're grateful for. And of course, it doesn't have to be fancy or involved. It just, you can even just think of 3 simple statements a day. So some examples would be, I'm grateful for my friends and family. By doing this, even during the most difficult times, your gratitude practice will help keep things in perspective, create joy, and keep you grounded. Again, we're training our brain to focus on the positives. So gratitude will never be about what you don't have. It's not sold in stores, right? You can't buy gratitude. Gratitude is found in humility, and it's about appreciating, once again, the simple things in life. So many research studies have shown that gratitude is associated with greater happiness. Of course, we know happiness is fleeting, but we could all use a little bit more of that in our lives. As caretakers, you might feel hard pressed to feel grateful during this time in your life as you care for someone who is struggling, or not feeling well, or having a disability. You might even have thoughts of like, why did this happen to our family? Or it's so hard to see dad this way. He was such a proud man who never wanted anyone to help him or do anything for him. So in the midst of caretaking, you have to purposely look for things, occasions, and signs to counter those emotions so that they don't weigh you down. Start by being grateful each day for a supportive spouse, supportive family, friends, even your nurses and doctors and administrators that have held your hand through this journey. Next, listen to the music. So again, music, music, music. It's such a healing thing. So studies have shown that music can make us feel uplifted and helps to increase our social interactions. It decreases anxiety, pain, heart rate, and blood pressure. Isn't that fascinating? Music provides an escape from the day-to-day grind, and it can bring joy back into your life. So is there a song you can think of that brings you instant joy? Play it, dance, sing it out loud, whatever you got to do, right? Because even just movement can help release a lot of stress and tension in our body. So here's why music is important to our lives. It's universal, right? Crossing generational and cultural lines. So this is something that you can implement, not only for your benefit, but for your loved one's benefit as well, right? If you're caring for a child who maybe is interested in some of the newer music you haven't heard, maybe you can listen to what they're into and find some things that you like together, right? And that could be a nice bonding moment. Or if you're taking care of an elderly person, maybe play back some music that they liked when they were younger, harken back to those simpler times for them. So it can be very peaceful for both of you to engage in music in this way. So it helps you focus on a task at hand, and it can enhance your brain function. I don't know about you, but I cannot do any chores in my house without headphones, without listening to music. It just makes it seem like less of a chore, I think, if I'm listening to something that's, bringing me joy. Music can improve your memory. And again, it's one of the simple pleasures in life. Okay, joy isn't about big, extravagant things. Again, you're cultivating a characteristic, right? You're always seeing the joy in the day. You're not having to have some big, exciting moment for you to be joyful. Setting realistic expectations. I love this tip. So if you don't know, I've said this several times, but I have a pretty large family. I've been taking care of a lot of children for a long time. And when people will ask me, well, how do you do it? And the first thing I say is lowered my expectations. Because there are just some things that you just cannot do, right? There's only so much energy a body can hold. There's only so many finances we have. There's only so much time that we have. And we don't really, I think sometimes we get caught in the shoulds, right? And so we prioritize other people's expectations rather than our own. And so setting realistic expectations that work for you and your loved one and the rhythm of your life can be key in cultivating joy. So caregivers want to be everything to everyone, but that's just not possible. You set yourself up for disappointment when you don't consider the reality of your situation and what your true capabilities are. Often we end up blaming ourselves, right? Not meeting unrealistic expectations is a hotbed for guilt and discontent. We need to be truthful with ourselves about what our boundaries are and how much we can do and what we are willing to do. So realistic expectations, they keep you motivated, they help you to stay focused, they define your limits, and they provide a sense of control. Okay, so if you have realistic expectations and you're consistently meeting those expectations, that's going to build your confidence. That's going to boost your morale. That's going to help you experience joy because you're not going to feel like you're drowning all the time, right? There's always going to be something else to do. There's always going to be something that falls off your plate. But by setting realistic expectations, it makes those things a lot easier to accept and adapt to when the things don't turn out the way we planned, right? So now more than ever, it's important to take notice and find what brings you joy in your day-to-day experiences. Happiness and joy are possible even in difficult times. You just need to look for it. And finally, give yourself permission, okay? Give yourself permission to experience joy and to see things differently. So being a caregiver of a loved one or part of the sandwich generation, taking care of a family member who has a chronic or debilitating disease, can take a toll on you physically and emotionally, especially when it comes to your joy. During this season in your life, at times it may feel as if you're robotic as you move through your day-to-day responsibilities of caring for a loved one. And it may feel as if you've forgotten what makes your heart sing with joy, right? It's very easy to get overwhelmed and identify ourselves with the tasks that we do rather than as our individual human soul, what brings us joy. You may even suppress it out of guilt, right? That's kind of an odd thing to think about, but I'm sure it's not too far from the truth for some of us where, everything just seems turned upside down. And yet here you are finding joy. Maybe that's a little uncomfortable, but you can find joy. Like, again, it's a characteristic. So you can be joyful even amongst the chaotic moments. Let's see. Infusing joy and laughter back into your life will help you better deal with the stress of being a caregiver. Laughter specifically strengthens your immune system and releases certain feel-good endorphins. So one way that I infuse laughter into my life, which is not difficult when I've got a bunch of goofy teenagers in my life making me laugh. But I'm very particular about my social media consumption. And so, but I will allow myself to watch like the Instagram reels, which is, just little videos or whatever. But most of the videos I have are just hilarious. At least to me, they're hilarious. So one of my favorite parts of the day is when I lay in bed with my husband at night and we just watch silly videos and just laugh with our full bellies. And it's a nice way to end the day. And it does make you feel good. It is a good release. So that's just the way I do it. Of course, you can do it the way you feel works for you. But infusing laughter into your day can make a huge difference. And then finally, give yourself permission to see things differently. It's important to remember your loved one is so much more than the sum of their memories. Their spirit and energy can bring you joy and meaning to the lives of those around them, even long after a diagnosis. As their caregiver, it's okay to give yourself the permission to see your loved one in a new way than they were ever used to. Sometimes you must let go of the expectations created through past interactions in order to find meaning and connection after the disease manifests. Allowing the relationship to take on a new form will bring freedom and joy to both you and your loved one. Now, of course, this is probably talking more about a diagnosis maybe that's given later in life. But then it can still ring true also if, you've been a caregiver of a child with a chronic illness or disability, and this is the way the relationship has always been. So maybe seeing things differently isn't necessarily seeing that child differently and the relationship differently because that's how it's always been, but maybe even kind of rooting through what your expectations were before they were born and processing through that and seeing a new expectation and having new goals and new hopes and new dreams for your child that maybe you didn't give yourself permission to think about before. And of course, cherishing your memories can be helpful, but also find comfort in getting to know your loved one as who they are today. Okay. So that is all the information I have for you as far as the PowerPoint is concerned. But I would love to have a discussion and see if any of these tips have been helpful, if anyone has applied them in their lives, or if they have any other tips that they would like to share with everybody on how they cultivate joy and how they keep that long-standing characteristic of joy in their lives, despite maybe some of the more stressful road bumps that they've come across. on your journey. So I'll go ahead and open it up for anybody who wants to respond, any insights. I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I enjoyed it. I liked the part, about listening to music sometime, it helps you get through it. And also, when you can share a smile or whatever, you know, that help reduce.
Yeah, and one tip I've seen over and over again, especially caring for people who want maybe their memory isn't what it used to be. Going through scrapbooks, going through pictures, that kind of thing can be very healing for everybody, and it can also bring a lot of joy looking back on those moments, and just remembering the good times that you've had, and maybe even inspire you to look forward to the good times that are still yet to come. Again, you're looking at your loved one maybe a little differently than you did before in the beginning of your relationship, but that doesn't mean that you can't still find joy and cultivate those relationships even long after the diagnosis. So thank you, George. Thank you for sharing. So Crystal
Jenny, this is Charlotte.
Yes, hello, Charlotte.
Hello, I'm sorry. I know I got two things going on at the same time, but I couldn't get my Zoom screen to come up, so I had to tune in on my telephone as well. But it was so good to hear you say that music improves memory. So I think what I better do, I better have music on 24 hours because I need some improvement. Thank you for that.
You and me both, Charlotte.
This is Amelia Hatchett. Everything that you gave is very good, and I'm at the moment I'm not a caregiver, but I have been, and it was with my sister. She was terminal, but in every example here that you give, we actually used, but we didn't know that we were doing the right thing. Uh, and the change in attitude, we had a little problem with that because she was a jovial person, and when her attitude changed, we really didn't know how to deal with it, and I wasn't aware of this as we were going through, but excellent, excellent. And even if you're not uh, giving care right now, it helps me now. The points the tips uh, that you have.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, my hope is that whether you're caregiving or not, I think some of the information is just good for our own personal growth as individuals. So thank you for sharing that, Amelia. That makes me feel really good. So Crystal said in the chat, I think celebrating the small things, no matter how insignificant it may seem, helps to stay more positive and joyful. We love to reminisce about the good old days too, and that includes listening to song favorites. Yes, yes, wonderful.
I think when you're younger, it's especially for me that when you're growing up, you think of happiness in terms of the big thing. So when I get married, when I, get a house, or when I have children, or, all the big things. And once you kind of done and lived a lot of life, you realize that the real happiness is the tiny things that happen every day. And I think it was John Lennon who said, life is what happens while you're busy making plans. That's the real joy, is the everyday, the tiny. And just to try to, I don't know, I try to, if I have a positive thought about someone, I try to say it. Because if you, and honestly, you don't make things up, but something that's really genuine, and this is kind of crazy, but it harkens back for me to 9/11. And after 9/11, when all those people were missing, and everyone came on television and they had these posters and they talked about how wonderful their loved ones are and how amazing they were. And I used to think, how often did they tell them that? You know, I mean, obviously they felt all these things, but did they really vocalize that to people? So I just try to spread a little joy. If I have a positive thought about someone, just tell them right then, just tell them.
That's a beautiful tip. And I think that that kind of helps with your negativity bias too, right? Because you're kind of putting that into somebody like, you know, I see this in you, I value this in you. And not only does that help the person to feel better, but you feel good too, right? Because you've spoken life into somebody else. And that, of course, will in turn just regenerate life into your own. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's beautiful. And I do think that we should compliment each other and express our love to each other more often, because like you said, you know, you never know if somebody's gone and you never express that to them, you know, you missed your opportunity. So thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but also don't want to rush if you're still kind of thinking and formulating your words.
Yes, about this gratitude practice. My mom has been really difficult. I mean, and she can be mean too. I mean, she's just, I mean, I'm trying to help her, but she doesn't see it that way. But at the same time, I am so thankful that she is still in my life, because I don't know what I would do if she wasn't in my life. I'm just so thankful every day that I still have her.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Like, I mean, especially when you say, like, you know, she's been difficult, it's been stressful, but you still see her for her, right? You still love her.
Yeah.
She's still your mother.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I do love her.
And it's obvious, right? Because if you didn't love her, you wouldn't be doing what you do every day, right?
Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah. And I know it's difficult when, you know, maybe they don't see it as help. Like you said, she doesn't see that what you're doing for her is out of love.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I know that can be painful, but, and of course, I don't know the details of your mother's diagnosis or whatever, but, you know, you can only do what you can do, and you can only love her the way that you can love her. And even if she doesn't see it, I mean, I still think that we see it, right? And I definitely encourage you, and I'm so grateful that you are feeling grateful despite the stress and despite the challenges you're experiencing. And I really do think that's a wonderful example of what it means to have joy as a characteristic and not as a feeling that you have, right? Because happiness is something you're going to chase, you know, our whole lives. It's always fleeting and it's always going to be something different. But joy is how the energy that you're resonating out from inside. And so thank you for sharing that. Very inspiring, Angela.
And I must say that it's not easy to, I mean, like the other day, I was trying to put her compression hose on, and she was so mad at me, and she was yelling at me, and she was saying things like, "Oh, I hope you die." I mean, and you know, and I know that's not her; it's her dementia. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's an important perspective to maintain, to know that sometimes the things that come out of our loved ones isn't really them. It's their diagnosis, and it doesn't make it easier to hear, but it might make it less likely that you're internalizing it, and you can just kind of let it roll off, like they would say, like water off a duck's back, you know. So thank you. And of course, Angela, if it gets to the point where you are needing somebody to just vent to so that, you know, you can move on, don't hesitate to reach out to me, because I'm here for you. Okay. Well, I appreciate your all's attendance. I appreciate your participation more than anything. And I just really, I want you all to know, you know, on the subject of joy, doing these trainings, doing these educations with you does bring me a lot of joy, because like I said before, the world can be kind of crazy, and we always hear about the negatives that people are doing, but I have the privilege every week to experience a community of people who are serving and loving and being compassionate and walking in empathy, and you are my people, right? And so it's nice for me to have a reminder that not everybody in the world is as horrible as our media likes to make us feel. I really do think there's more of us than there are of them, as far as human beings just being kind and caring towards other human beings. I think that's the majority of us. And so I thank you for reminding me of that every week, with your undying and unwavering love for the people that you care for. It does fill my cup for sure. So thank you for that. So with the next month coming up, I do want to remind you of, or let you know, some of the classes we're doing. The first class we're going to do in December is called The Child Within, and we're going to talk briefly about our inner children and how we can use that to inspire us to find wonder and awe and joy in our everyday lives, especially with the holiday season continuing. It's nice to kind of approach these moments in our lives with like a childlike curiosity and a childlike wonder, and that's how we can find a lot of peace. Secondly, we're going to have 2 guest educators this month coming up, which I'm excited about. One will be talking about the elder justice community and some of the things going on in Alabama that might be interesting to you all. And then also we're going to talk about long-term and financial planning with Stephanie Hendon, who is a financial advisor. I know finances aren't really fun to listen about, but you might find some tips in her presentation that can be useful for you to apply to your daily life. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to end it with the relationship between perfectionism and procrastination, and maybe hopefully alleviate some guilt that we might feel when things don't turn out perfect, or when we procrastinate too long, because they really are kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So I hope that you all join me for those. And of course, our support group is going to be this month as well. And we're going to be doing a holiday scavenger hunt. So that'll be a little bit fun. And of course, I'm open for you guys to call me, email me, whatever you need to do to get a hold of me if you need some extra support during the holidays. I know it can be such a beautiful time, but it can also be such a pain in the butt. So I'm definitely going to be here for you if you're just kind of reaching your limit. So don't hesitate to reach out either through email or phone, and so we can connect that way. Is there anything that anybody wants to add or share before we close today?
I would, Gina. This is Charlotte again. I would just like to say thank you so much for your commitment and dedication that you bring to us every month. We really do appreciate it, and we are looking forward to having you come to speak to our support at Union Hill Primitive Baptist Church. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think I'm going to get you a pair of pom-poms for Christmas, because you're just one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And so one more reminder, if you haven't done so, please put your email in the chat so I can send you all that post link. And I really hope you all have a very restful weekend. Carve some time out just for you, even if it's just an hour in the bathtub, which I know seems like a long time, but I'll spend 2 hours in there. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. Sometimes I just got to pretend I'm a mermaid to make everything okay. So, oh yes, thank you, Crystal, so much. You also have a good day and enjoy the weekend. Don't be too cold, and I will see you all hopefully next week. All right. All right. Bye, everyone.